I found the text message by accident. He'd left his phone on the bathroom counter, still unlocked. I wasn't snooping. I was brushing my teeth. But when the screen lit up and I saw her name, Melissa, my blood stopped cold. Can't wait to feel you again. Last night was heaven. Tell her you're working late again? Face blowing a kiss. Melissa, my little sister. I stood there, toothbrush frozen in midair, my hand trembling. My husband, Evan, was cheating on me. That alone would have gutted me. But with her, my own flesh and blood, I tried to breathe.
In, out, in, out.
I heard the water running in the shower. Evan was humming, off-key like always. I looked down at the phone again. The lock screen had re-engaged. My reflection stared back at me in the black mirror. Hollow eyes, toothpaste foaming in my mouth. My world had just shattered, and all I could do was spit. Let me rewind. Before all of this, before betrayal crept into my house like smoke, I thought we were a normal family. My name is Dahlia. I'm 38, married to Evan for 12 years. We built a life together in the suburbs of Portland. 2 kids, a dog, and a mortgage. I work in HR for a logistics company. Evan's a project manager in commercial construction. Melissa is 5 years younger than me, always the wild one. The pretty sister, if you asked her. And she did ask, constantly. We weren't close as kids. She was the kind who broke things and smiled while doing it. I was the one cleaning up the mess. Our parents babed her, especially Dad. She had him wrapped around her manicured little finger, even after everything she'd done. But I always made excuses for her. She didn't mean to borrow my car and crash it. She didn't mean to flirt with my college boyfriend. She didn't mean to show up drunk to my wedding. And she certainly didn't mean to sleep with my husband, right? Yeah. That illusion shattered along with my sanity. That morning, I didn't confront Evan. I didn't throw the phone at him. I didn't scream. Instead, I quietly backed out of the bathroom, sat on the edge of our bed, and stared out the window while the sun rose over a life I no longer recognized. I had to be sure. If I accused them now, they'd deny it. They'd gaslight me. I'd be painted as the jealous wife and the bitter sister. I knew them well enough to predict the lies they'd tell, so I played along. I kissed Evan goodbye before he left for work. I packed the kids' lunches like normal. I texted Melissa some memes she'd sent me last week with a LOL and a laughing emoji. But inside, I was crumbling. That night, I told Evan I had a late meeting at work. Instead, I followed him. He wasn't surprised when I didn't come home until 10, because he didn't come home either. His location showed he was at the other side of town. I parked 2 houses down and watched him walk right up to a cheap little townhouse. Melissa's townhouse. I saw her open the door. In nothing but a robe. They kissed. That's when I knew. Everything after that felt like a movie I was watching from outside my body. My stomach twisted in ways I can't describe. My chest hurt like I'd been kicked. The betrayal sat in my throat, thick and sour, and refused to move. I drove home on autopilot, sat in the driveway. For a long, long time, I thought of our kids, Ava, 10, and Liam, 7. They were inside, asleep, unaware their father was giving himself to their aunt like our marriage meant nothing. How the hell had I not seen this coming? That night, I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. And then things got worse. 2 days later, Melissa called me. Dahlia, she said, her voice falsely sweet. I need to tell you something.
Can we meet?
I agreed, thinking she might confess. Maybe even apologize. We met at a cafe halfway between our houses. She wore sunglasses and that smug little smirk she always had when she thought she was getting away with something. I didn't know how to tell you, she said, stirring her overpriced latte. But Evan and I were in love. Just like that. No preamble. No remorse. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. What? She leaned in, dropping the act. You don't make him happy, Dahlia. He told me everything. How cold you've become. How distant. He needs someone who makes him feel alive again. Alive. I laughed, sharp and broken. You mean horny? She didn't flinch. You've always been jealous of me. But he chose me. The blood in my ears roared. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and whispered, you can keep him. But I promise you, this won't end the way you think. And I meant it. Because Melissa hadn't just taken my husband, she'd taken my father, too. But that's another part of the story. And trust me, when the truth comes out, it won't be me who ends up alone. I found the text message by accident. He'd left his phone on the bathroom counter, still unlocked. I wasn't snooping. I was brushing my teeth. But when the screen lit up and I saw her name, Melissa, my blood stopped cold. Can't wait to feel you again. Last night was heaven. Tell her you're working late again? Face blowing a kiss. Melissa, my little sister. I stood there, toothbrush frozen in midair, my hand trembling. My husband, Evan, was cheating on me. That alone would have gutted me. But with her, my own flesh and blood, I tried to breathe.
In, out, in, out.
I heard the water running in the shower. Evan was humming, off-key like always. I looked down at the phone again. The lock screen had re-engaged. My reflection stared back at me in the black mirror. Hollow eyes, toothpaste foaming in my mouth. My world had just shattered, and all I could do was spit. Let me rewind. Before all of this, before betrayal crept into my house like smoke, I thought we were a normal family. My name is Dahlia. I'm 38, married to Evan for 12 years. We built a life together in the suburbs of Portland. 2 kids, a dog, and a mortgage. I work in HR for a logistics company. Evan's a project manager in commercial construction. Melissa is 5 years younger than me, always the wild one. The pretty sister, if you asked her. And she did ask, constantly. We weren't close as kids. She was the kind who broke things and smiled while doing it. I was the one cleaning up the mess. Our parents babied her, especially Dad. She had him wrapped around her manicured little finger, even after everything she'd done. But I always made excuses for her. She didn't mean to borrow my car and crash it. She didn't mean to flirt with my college boyfriend. She didn't mean to show up drunk to my wedding. And she certainly didn't mean to sleep with my husband, right? Yeah. That illusion shattered along with my sanity. That morning, I didn't confront Evan. I didn't throw the phone at him. I didn't scream. Instead, I quietly backed out of the bathroom, sat on the edge of our bed, and stared out the window while the sun rose over a life I no longer recognized. I had to be sure. If I accused them now, they'd deny it. They'd gaslight me. I'd be painted as the jealous wife and the bitter sister. I knew them well enough to predict the lies they'd tell, so I played along. I kissed Evan goodbye before he left for work. I packed the kids' lunches like normal. I texted Melissa some memes she'd sent me last week with a LOL and a laughing emoji. But inside, I was crumbling. That night, I told Evan I had a late meeting at work. Instead, I followed him. He wasn't surprised when I didn't come home until 10, because he didn't come home either. His location showed he was at the other side of town. I parked 2 houses down and watched him walk right up to a cheap little townhouse. Melissa's townhouse. I saw her open the door. In nothing but a robe. They kissed. That's when I knew. Everything after that felt like a movie I was watching from outside my body. My stomach twisted in ways I can't describe. My chest hurt like I'd been kicked. The betrayal sat in my throat, thick and sour, and refused to move. I drove home on autopilot, sat in the driveway. For a long, long time, I thought of our kids, Ava, 10, and Liam, 7. They were inside, asleep, unaware their father was giving himself to their aunt like our marriage meant nothing. How the hell had I not seen this coming? That night, I crawled into bed and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. And then things got worse. 2 days later, Melissa called me. Dahlia, she said, her voice falsely sweet. I need to tell you something.
Can we meet?
I agreed, thinking she might confess. Maybe even apologize. We met at a cafe halfway between our houses. She wore sunglasses and that smug little smirk she always had when she thought she was getting away with something. I didn't know how to tell you, she said, stirring her overpriced latte. But Evan and I were in love. Just like that. No preamble. No remorse. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. What? She leaned in, dropping the act. You don't make him happy, Dahlia. He told me everything. How cold you've become. How distant. He needs someone who makes him feel alive again. Alive. I laughed, sharp and broken. You mean horny? She didn't flinch. You've always been jealous of me. But he chose me. The blood in my ears roared. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and whispered, you can keep him. But I promise you, this won't end the way you think. And I meant it. Because Melissa hadn't just taken my husband. She'd taken my father, too. But that's another part of the story. And trust me, when the truth comes out, it won't be me who ends up alone. After that cafe meeting, something broke in me, not like a clean snap. No, it was the slow, sickening kind of break, like a rope fraying strand by strand until it gives way. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the one after. Instead, I started watching them, not just Evan and Melissa. I watched everyone. My father, my mother, our friends. I started to question everything, every laugh, every glance, every holiday photo that suddenly felt like a lie. I became a stranger in my own life, but at least now I was awake. I didn't tell the kids. Of course not. Ava had a math competition coming up, and Liam was learning his first song on the piano. I wasn't about to let their world implode just because mine had. So I smiled. I packed lunches. I said, Daddy's working late, and Aunt Melissa can't come to dinner. All the while I was planning. But before I could even figure out how to move forward, another gut punch came. It happened on a Saturday. Dad was hosting his birthday dinner. A tradition. We always did it at his house. Melissa showed up late, wearing a tight black dress like she was going to a cocktail bar, not a family gathering. I hadn't spoken to her since the cafe. She greeted everyone with hugs, but when she came to me, she barely nodded.
Good. Keep your distance, I thought.
I stayed busy in the kitchen with Mom, chopping vegetables and pretending I wasn't holding back rage with every slice. Evan wasn't there. He claimed to have a weekend sight check 2 hours away. A convenient excuse. Dinner started out tense but manageable. Ava was telling Grandpa about school, Liam was playing with his toy truck under the table, and Mom was refilling wine glasses. Then Melissa dropped the bomb. So, Daddy, she said, swirling her red wine, I think it's time we talk about the trust. The table went still. My dad frowned. What about it? She leaned forward like she was on stage. I mean, I'm turning 33 soon. I just thought, maybe it's time we reviewed some things. You know, just in case anything ever happens. Dad sighed. Melissa, we've been through this. The trust isn't changing. The terms were set years ago. She smiled, too sweet. Sure, but Dahlia's kids are getting older. What if she and Evan don't work out? Shouldn't we consider options that protect all of us? I dropped my fork. She glanced at me, and there it was again, that smirk. I locked eyes with Dad. He was annoyed, clearly, but he didn't shut her down. Not really. Let's not do this now, he said, glancing toward Mom. Melissa just sipped her wine and shrugged. Just a thought. It wasn't just a thought. It was a threat. And I suddenly understood. This wasn't just about Evan. She wanted everything. Money, family, reputation. She was worming her way into the inheritance discussions, knowing I was already emotionally wrecked and vulnerable. After dinner, I helped clean up, while Melissa slinked off to the patio with Dad. Through the kitchen window, I watched them talk. He laughed at something she said. She touched his arm. Too long. My stomach churned. My father had always been indulgent with her. Gave her money when she didn't deserve it. Forgave every reckless decision. But now, with that look on his face, pride mixed with something else, I felt something colder than jealousy. I felt betrayal. Again. Later that night, I texted Evan. Did you know Melissa is trying to manipulate Dad's trust? No answer. I waited. Then I called. Straight to voicemail. I looked at the time. 10:52 p.m. I checked his location. He was at Melissa's townhouse. And just like that, I stopped waiting for his lies. A week later, I hired a private investigator. His name was Daryl. Not a slick movie type. He was pushing 60, wore windbreakers, and smelled faintly like cigar smoke. But he was sharp, and he didn't waste time with pleasantries. I gave him the basics. My husband, my sister, suspected affair. He nodded, took notes, and said he'd start the next day. I'll get you proof, he said. But I've got to ask, what are you planning to do? I looked him square in the eye. Whatever I have to. While Daryl worked his angles, I went digging through my own house. I checked bank statements, phone bills, email logins. I found a second checking account Evan had opened months ago. Transfers I never authorized. Over $18,000 missing in under 6 months. Guess where it was going? I found Melissa's name on a Venmo history. Multiple payments labeled consulting. Cute. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being stolen from. But the biggest shock came from my father. I visited him alone the following Sunday. I said it was to drop off some photos of the kids. But really I needed to see him up close. To hear his voice. To watch his eyes. We sat in his study. Leather armchairs. Shelves of dusty books no one had touched in decades. Dad, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Do you trust Melissa? He looked at me surprised. She's my daughter. That's not what I asked. He took a deep breath. She's impulsive, but she's trying. I laughed. Trying to sleep with my husband? Or trying to cut me out of the trust? He blinked. You know, I said slowly. She told me you were thinking about changing the will. That Evan might be better for managing things than me. Now, that wasn't entirely true, but I wanted to see his reaction. And he didn't deny it. Instead, he said, I've had some concerns. You've seemed distracted. Melissa stepped up lately, helped me organize paperwork. Maybe it's time we prepare for the future. And just like that, my own father, admitted he was considering handing my family's legacy to the woman who stabbed me in the back. I stood up, holding back tears. I used to think she was just selfish, I said. Now I know better. He didn't say a word as I left, but in that moment I knew. I wasn't up against just a cheating husband or a vindictive sister. I was up against a machine built of old family loyalties and lies that had been cultivated for decades. So I made a decision. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't cry. I would gather the truth, one bloody shard at a time. And when I was ready, I wouldn't just burn their bridge. I'd take away everything they thought they owned. 3 weeks after hiring Daryl, he called me at 6:42 a.m. I've got everything you need. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of black coffee I hadn't touched. I hadn't slept. My heart started pounding. Everything, I asked. He didn't even pause. Pictures, videos, bank transfers, hotel logs, text records. Your husband and your sister aren't even being subtle. My throat dried. Drop it at my house, I said. Print, USB. I want both. By 8:15, I was sitting on the living room floor with a manila envelope in my lap, hands shaking. The first image was of Evan and Melissa leaving a hotel, his hand on her lower back, her lipstick smudged. The second was of them at a restaurant, one we used to go to for anniversaries. They were sharing a plate of oysters. She was sitting on his lap. Evan was laughing. I hadn't seen him laugh like that in years. The third was a screenshot of a bank statement, $3,000 wired from Evan's secret account to Melissa's savings. The memo read, "Deposit for our place." Our place? I nearly dropped the folder. They were planning to live together. Maybe already had. Evan was sleeping beside me every other night and plotting a future with my sister. And then came the real dagger. Daryl had managed to bug Evan's truck, just a tiny audio device under the seat. What I heard made my skin go cold. Audio clip. Evan, voice low, anxious. I told her I'd stay married until after the fiscal year closes. If I leave now, she gets half the company's shares. But once I pull out, we're free. I can sell off my interest and move in. We'll be untouchable. Melissa, she's not gonna see it coming. Dahlia's too proud to snoop. And Dad's on our side now, so worst case, we spin it as a divorce over stress. No one has to know about us. At least not until the ink dries. I closed my eyes. They were using me, stalling the divorce, so Evan could protect his assets, smearing my name behind my back, manipulating my father to isolate me. The betrayal wasn't just personal. It was strategic, cold, businesslike. I couldn't breathe for a full minute, but then a strange calm settled over me, because now I had everything I needed. I didn't confront them, not yet. I started playing a role, one I hated, but one that would save me. I made myself look tired, numb, unaware. I stopped checking Evan's phone. I stopped asking questions. I let him think I was slipping into passive acceptance. The good little wife who didn't have the strength to fight back. He lapped it up, started coming home more often, started talking about us again, even started having sex with me again. And every time he touched me, I wanted to scream, but I let it happen because I needed him to feel safe. Safe enough to get sloppy. The day everything imploded started like any other. Ava had a field trip. Liam forgot his lunchbox. Evan kissed me on the cheek, told me he'd be working late. I nodded. Then I got a text from my dad. "We need to talk. Come by the house tonight." I already knew what it was about. Melissa had finally poisoned his ear enough to make him call me in. When I arrived, she was already there, wearing pearls and that fake innocence like armor. We sat in the living room, the same room where he used to read to us as kids. My father looked tired, worried. He held a folder in his lap. "Dahlia," he said, "we've been reviewing the estate plan." I didn't blink. He glanced at Melissa. She gave a performative sigh. "I just want what's fair," she said. I almost laughed. Dad continued. "With your marriage, going through changes, and with Melissa stepping up, helping me get my affairs in order, I've decided to divide the trust equally." He paused. 50-50. It landed like a punch to the gut. For years, I was the one who stayed, took care of Mom when she had her surgery, helped Dad run the family finances when he had a minor stroke. Melissa was off partying in Ibiza and burning through trust fund cash. And now I was being downgraded to equal. I looked at him, really looked. His hands were shaking. His eyes weren't steady. It hit me then. He didn't come to this decision on his own. Melissa's power of persuasion must be something, I said quietly. She blinked. Excuse me? I leaned forward. You really think this will hold? My father frowned. It's not about. I cut him off. Do you know how many laws they've broken? The money transfers? The fraud? The affair? The room fell silent. Melissa's face paled. You think you're building a future, I said, turning to her. But you're leaving fingerprints all over the crime scene. You can't prove anything, she said quickly. I smiled. Wanna bet? I stood up, pulled a small thumb drive from my bag, and handed it to my father. Play that. Then tell me who deserves your trust. Melissa lunged for it, but I was faster. Let him hear it. He looked confused, scared. But he took the drive, and I left. The fallout was nuclear. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at a hotel Daryl recommended, quiet, off the grid. The next morning, my phone exploded. 23 missed calls from Evan, 12 from my father, 5 texts from Melissa that were just strings of profanity and threats. I ignored them all. By noon, I had my lawyer file for divorce. By 3 p.m., Evan showed up at my job, red-eyed, begging to talk. I met him in the lobby, arms crossed. Let's not do this here, I said. Dahlia, please, he whispered. That recording? I never meant. I cut him off. You meant every word. I was just the fool who thought loyalty meant something. You can't destroy me over this. I looked him dead in the eyes. You already destroyed yourself. The next few days were chaos. Dad called to apologize. He admitted Melissa had been manipulating him, showing up with wine, crying on his shoulder about how I froze her out of the family. He swore he'd fix it, revert the trust,
Make it right.
but I didn't care anymore.
It was never about the money.
It was about respect, about the years I'd spent protecting a family that had no idea what protection even meant. I didn't just want revenge. I wanted clarity, and now I had it. Melissa and Evan were pariahs. My father cut them off. My mother refused to speak to either of them. Melissa tried to guilt-trip Mom, but she wasn't having it. You slept with your sister's husband, Melissa, my mother said during a voicemail I listened to on speaker. What part of that do you think earned sympathy? I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Evan still had assets he was hiding. Melissa was still scheming. But now I was the one pulling the strings, and they didn't even know what I had planned next. Because I wasn't done. I'd taken back my dignity. Now it was time to take back everything else. After the confrontation with Evan and Melissa, I could have stopped there. But that would have meant settling for justice that was only partial. I wanted it whole. I wanted to clean the rot out of every corner of my life. Not just divorce papers or a bitter voicemail from my mother to Melissa. No, I wanted closure. And closure, I learned, sometimes requires fire. Let me explain. The day after my father reviewed the recordings, he called me again. I'm sorry, Dahlia, he said quietly. I should have known. I let her get in my head. She came here in tears every other day talking about how you ignored her calls, how Evan felt emotionally abandoned. I should have asked questions. Yeah, I said. You should have. I want to make this right. I told him to revert the trust, remove Melissa from power of attorney documents, and revoke anything she'd been handling financially. He agreed. I hung up and cried for 20 minutes straight, not for what I'd lost, but for how close I'd come to losing everything, because I kept giving people the benefit of the doubt. But this next part, this was where the new me took over. I went to war. My divorce lawyer, Sharon Baines, was brilliant. Silver hair, sharp tongue, and a reputation for eating men like Evan alive in court. She called me into her office and laid out the battlefield. He's transferred marital assets into personal accounts. That's fraud. He's attempting to undervalue his business. That's concealment. If we play this smart, and we will, you walk away with majority custody, alimony, and at least half of what he's worth. I nodded. But you have to stay calm. He's going to provoke you. That's all he is left. Sure enough, Evan tried. The night he was served, he called my cell 6 times in an hour. I didn't answer. He showed up at Ava's school the next morning, pretending to drop off supplies he forgot to give her. I had already notified the school. His name was removed from unsupervised access. He exploded, told the principal I was brainwashing the kids, painting him as a villain. She handed him a copy of the court order and told him to leave. He texted me that night. You don't have to destroy me. We can still fix this. And then, an hour later, you're nothing without me. I built you. It made me laugh. I showed the messages to Sharon. She documented every one. We built a file. Each lie, each betrayal, each manipulation, neatly categorized, time-stamped, and cross-referenced. And while he squirmed, I started cleaning house. First, I changed the locks. Then the bank accounts. Then the kids' school pickup permissions, emergency contacts, and the iCloud passwords Evan thought I'd never find. I put the house on the market. My name was still primary on the deed, and I moved Ava and Liam into a rented cottage on the other side of town. Small, cozy, safe. Melissa tried to follow me on Instagram. I blocked her. She left a note on my windshield one afternoon, folded under the wiper. You think you won, but you're just playing bitter martyr. You'll never be happy without control. That made me pause, because she wasn't wrong about the control part, but not in the way she thought. Control wasn't about power over others. It was about reclaiming what I'd allowed people to take from me for years. My voice, my agency, my boundaries. Then came the courtroom. I won't lie. My hand shook when I saw Evan across from me, sitting at his lawyer's table, looking exhausted and humiliated. His suit didn't fit. His tie was crooked. Melissa wasn't there. Sharon laid out the case, the financial manipulation, the infidelity, the attempts to isolate me, and most damning of all, the recordings. We didn't even need to call Daryl. The judge listened to 5 minutes of audio before holding up a hand. Enough, she said. She turned to Evan. You should thank your wife for not pressing criminal charges. He paled. I was awarded 65% of the marital assets, full custody with supervised visitation for Evan, pending therapy, and a review period. Alimony for 2 years. Ownership of our home until it sold. It was over. Almost. 2 weeks later, Melissa tried to play her last card. She sent an email to my father, CC'd me on it, accusing me of manipulating the family against her, of weaponizing the kids, and of stealing her birthright. Birthright. She always had a flair for drama. I replied with a single line. I hope one day you realize how deeply broken you are, but I won't wait around for it. Dad never responded to her. Mom changed her will. And Melissa? She disappeared for a while, until I ran into her by accident. It was at the grocery store. I was pushing a cart of snacks for the kids' weekend trip when I heard her voice behind me.
Wow.
Cottagecore suits you. I turned around. She looked tired. Hair limp, dark circles, designer purse, but no shine left in her eyes. I looked at her, then down at the blueberries in my cart. I thought you moved. She gave a sharp smile. I did. Then I moved back. Things didn't work out with Evan. What a shock. Her smile faltered. He said you changed, said you weren't the woman he married. I stared at her for a moment. I'm not. And thank God for that. She took a step closer. You think you won, but you're alone. I shook my head.
No.
I'm free. And I walked away. That night, I watched Ava pack her little weekend suitcase, carefully folding her pajamas. Liam came running in with a drawing me, him, Ava, our dog. No Evan. No Melissa. I made it for your office, he said. I hung it on the fridge instead, because that was my new office. My home. My rules. My life. And no one would ever take it from me again. Months passed. People say time heals, but what they don't tell you is it also rearranges. It doesn't stitch you up the same way you were before. It leaves you sharper, smarter, sometimes harder. But me? I didn't become bitter. I became aware. The kids adjusted faster than I did. Ava stopped asking when Daddy's coming home. Liam still asked occasionally, but less and less. I told them what I could without poisoning their view. He made some hurtful choices, I said. And sometimes when people hurt us, we have to choose peace over proximity. They accepted that. Kids understand more than we give them credit for. Evan tried to fix his image, posted vague Facebook updates about self-growth and co-parenting challenges. Melissa unfollowed him on everything shortly after. Turns out, betrayal burns bridges in both directions. And while they scrambled to control the narrative, I rebuilt quietly. I took a promotion at work, head of HR for the entire Northwest region. I started therapy. I joined a kickboxing gym. I cut my hair. And I started dating. Nothing serious, just dinners, laughs, moments that reminded me I was still wanted, but now, on my terms. It felt good to be seen, not as someone's wife or daughter or fallback, but as me. Still, a final thread remained. A year after the divorce was finalized, I got a letter from Melissa's lawyer. She was contesting our father's updated trust, claimed undue influence, that his decision to remove her as beneficiary was coerced by me using manipulative tactics and emotional leverage. The letter was wild. Accused me of blackmail, of sabotaging Melissa's career, which was non-existent, and even hinted that I'd stolen sensitive documents from her email. I laughed out loud reading it. Then I did what I always do, prepared. I sat down with my father, this time in his lawyer's office, and told him to be honest. Are you afraid she'll take you to court? He shook his head. Let her. I've got receipts. Turns out, after everything blew up, he'd started documenting every communication with Melissa, calls, texts, visits. He kept notes. Even printed emails she sent threatening to go public with family secrets if he didn't give her her share. We handed all of it over to his attorney, who built a response so airtight you could seal it and drop it in the ocean. Melissa never filed. Just another bluff. Another attempt to control the narrative. But that wasn't the last time I saw her. The real ending came on a cold, gray November morning. I was at the cemetery, visiting my mother's grave. She'd passed a few months earlier, peacefully in her sleep. Complications from a long illness none of us really spoke about. I brought white roses. Ava and Liam helped me plant tulips nearby. When they wandered off to look at the pond near the entrance, I stayed behind. And then I heard the heels.
Click, click, click.
I didn't turn. I figured I'd find you here, Melissa said softly. I stayed kneeling by the grave, brushing dead leaves away from the plaque. She loved you, you know, I said. Even when you hurt her. Melissa exhaled. She always thought you were stronger. I finally looked up. She looked thinner. Like her anger had consumed her body. Expensive coat, but hollow eyes. I'm not here to fight, she said. I've lost everyone. I stood up. You didn't lose us. You discarded us. She opened her mouth, closed it. The wind whipped her hair across her face. I was angry, she said, for a long time, about how you were always the one they trusted, the one they believed. I nodded. You always thought being the favorite meant being right. But love doesn't equal obedience. Tears welled up in her eyes. For a second, she looked like the little girl I used to sneak cookies to when Dad wasn't looking. But then she looked down at the gravestone and whispered, I wish I'd come to see her before she passed. She asked about you, but she stopped expecting you. We stood in silence. The kids called to me from the car. I turned to leave. Melissa reached out and touched my arm. I'm sorry. For Evan. For everything. I looked at her hand, then at her. I accept your apology, I said. But that doesn't mean I want you in my life. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I get it. She walked away. And that, finally, was the end. Back home, I tucked Ava and Liam into bed. The wind was picking up. Leaves danced across the street outside our window. Liam asked, was Grandma sad when she died? No, I said. She had peace. She said she'd lived enough life to know what matters. Ava whispered, what matters? Love, I said.
Truth.
And the people who stay even when things are hard. Now, as I sit on the porch of our new house, just a small rental with a porch swing and creaky steps, I can hear the sound of laughter drifting from inside. My children, my peace, my freedom. Melissa took my husband. She tried to take my father. She tried to take my name, my dignity, and everything I built. But in the end, she gave me something she never intended. A reason to start over. And this time, I built a life no one could tear down. Not because it was perfect, but because it was mine.